What's up and welcome to Branding Beyond Business. I'm your host, John Mediana. Media is in my name, so I feel like I was born to do this.
Welcome to Branding Beyond Business with your host, John Mediana. Let's get into it.
Welcome to this episode. This episode is brought to you by Executive Brand Growth. We'll talk about that later on, but I just wanted to introduce myself if we have never met before. I'm John Mediana. I've been a creative professional, a creative entrepreneur for now celebrating a little bit over 22 years now in the creative professional field. I function as a creative director, brand marketing, all the things, went to film school, all that stuff, worked with all kinds of brands, been able to generate over now celebrating over $1 billion for clients in revenue and over 5 billion views of online reach, I guess. That is by simply making the right content for them. So video is huge. And today's topic in this episode, we are talking about if short form content is actually hurting your brand. And, maybe it's a little clickbait, but maybe it's not. We'll dive super deep into it. Now, I know that if you're tuning in and you've clicked on this episode specifically, you're curious. You are curious. You know that short form has been on the rise and that everyone and their mother is making short form content thanks to TikTok, Instagram Reels, and all that. But the rise of it really started a long time ago with a platform called Vine. If you haven't heard of Vine, Google it. It's really the spark of these, what we call influencers and all that. When Vine became huge and then they shut down, then Musical.ly came and they ultimately became TikTok. And recently there was the shortest ban on TikTok ever in history. It was for like 1 day, but we're out of it now, I think, because of the new administration. So if you're listening to this right now, it is January 20th. Happy MLK Day and Inauguration Day, 2025. So as I'm recording this, will probably be out later this week. Or if you're listening to this down the road, you could probably look back at it and kind of revisit where we're at in history. So we're going to super dive into this topic of short form. And what you might not know is that it actually might even be hurting your brand. And we'll discuss that because here at Branding Beyond Business, we want to help you build a brand that can grow beyond your business. That means that wherever you're at in life, you might be transitioning from one career to the next. Your brand is so important because you are the brand. Your story is your brand. And we want to help you really grow that foundation and understand where you are in your journey. Whether you're building your business, whether you're building influence, income, impact, all those things, it's super important to understand that you are the brand and you carry that with you as you grow. So in this episode, we're talking about short form. We're talking about the rise. We're talking about where we're at currently in short form content and the release, the Instagram release that is fairly new about extending the Instagram Reels, which totally reminds me of this thing that they used to have called IGTV. I don't know if you remember IGTV, but it was this long form version. It was going to be like the YouTube of Instagram, really. So I feel like they're bringing that back because they've extended Reels from like a minute, 30 seconds to 3 minutes now. So they're testing out long form content. And what I'm seeing as far as 2025 goes, the direction that we're going is we are completely consumed and like oversaturated with short form videos, like super fast, like cutaways, graphics, all the things. And what's happening, if you don't recognize this or realize this, we are creating what we call content blindness. And content blindness is when we just been bombarded with all kinds of, and you know what, to be honest, I'm so glad that short form, that era of like snappy, just like all that stuff is kind of like slowly dying out because we could get back to the nitty gritty of building a bulletproof brand, which is long form, which is consuming a brand, which is understanding that you're building an audience that tunes in, that is intimate, that is caring about your brand. You're not just trying to get views and blow up and become influencer status overnight. And that's what essentially TikTok has done. And the thing that, and I'm not bashing that at all. I just think that when it comes to overnight successes, it's never the following of that is like rise and fall, you know? So like there will come a fall. And when it does, it falls hard because it was just a trend. It was just I'm bored now. So this is like what boosted me up. And then when that dies out, there's no fallback. Like there's no comeback from that. So really noticing that, what we've done here on this podcast, what I've been trying to do in my coaching programs and all those stuff when I'm working with brands is not having them fall for the shiny object syndrome or effect, right? The thing of like, well, this is trending. Well, this is what's going on. It's like, yeah, I get it. But here's the thing, like you want to develop a deep audience that's going to grow with you and follow your story and be a super fan, not just like a trend. So and here's the thing, like neither are bad. If your goal and outcome is to grow as fast as you can, make a little bit of money or gain a lot of views and do some brand deals, then that's your thing. Go do that thing. But if you're listening right now, I think that my audience here understands that you want to build a deeper connection to your audience. You want to build a relationship. You want to build a business that lasts because you're thinking legacy. You're thinking purpose. You're thinking my mission is bigger than myself. So if that is you, if you're listening right now and you're part of the Branding Beyond Business tribe here, you might believe that your mission is bigger than yourself and you want to grow the right way and make right content, not just trendy content or gain those views, which typically can be very vanity metrics because we can't, and we'll dive into that into this episode. But really, you want to build a brand that has a strong foundation, correct? Yes, absolutely. Because if you're building an audience, if you're building super fans, whatever you build in the future, whether it's this business or the next business, you're going to be able to take that attention with you and you're going to be able to bring people on the journey and they're going to be able to grow with you as you're growing as an entrepreneur. So I'm really excited to get into this. I know that it's like, it might be clickbait at first, but really we're going to dive into it and really figure out how short form is actually hurting your content and how do we flip the switch on that? How do we actually turn that short form attention into long form attention, which grows your audience and grows your super fans? Okay. So let's go ahead and dive into the rise really quickly of short form content. Just a quick recap. So short form content really exploded with the rise of TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. I remember there was like a battle between all three, the trifecta battle, right? So TikTok came out, then Instagram Reels came out with Instagram then came out with Reels. And then as soon as that happened, YouTube came out with their own version called Shorts. And I remember I was like, whoo, I was just sitting there with like popcorn, like eating popcorn, like, oh man, what's going to happen? And then nothing really happened. They're just like, there it is. That's it. Because people want to consume it that way. But the more and more I talk to people that are on these platforms, especially YouTube, and if you're not on YouTube right now, you have got to grow your brand on YouTube. It is not what I call like a social media platform. It is a platform that is searchable. So it's like a search engine and it's a place to build deep community. So as we are diving more into YouTube and I'm going to be publishing more on YouTube, I'm going to focus heavily this year on YouTube and building that community. So if you're on here and you're watching YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, click the like button, leave a comment, share this, do whatever, like hit the notification bell, do all the things that you can do because we want to grow this channel, Branding Beyond Business here. And what I love about this is like, I remember in the beginnings, the trifecta war between YouTube, Instagram, TikTok was the Reels, was like the short form, king of short form content. So like I would put like the same reel on all three platforms and whatever would perform the best, I'd be like, see, TikTok's winning. Oh, YouTube Reels is winning. Oh, it's because they were trying to feed the algorithm and all this stuff. And this lasted for like a few, months, weeks? I don't know. But like, I remember getting an explosion of views. And then like later on, the algorithms changed and they slowly started trickling down the numbers. And like, thousands and thousands of views actually started to become hundreds of views. And then people like, oh, my algorithm's dead. Oh, I got shadow banned. Oh, blah, 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 blah. They had so many complaints. It's like, well, man, when we went back to the ground foundation of it, your content just really sucks. Like it just isn't resonating with the audience. It's just not hitting right. And I think like they were like pumping, lots of like dopamine, like viewerships in the very beginning so that you could get this high of like, oh, I'm going to be an influencer. I'm going to be famous overnight. I'm going to go viral. All those things. And it's like, it was just like, oh, it forced you to make more content because you're like, now I got a career in this now. I could quit my job and like, get brand deals and stuff. So like, it was like this false kind of explosion, and that was the rise of this highly engaging videos. And you could literally go viral overnight, and some did. And we don't know where they are now. They kind of like disappeared. And then Instagram shifted to Reels to compete with that, for the TikTok, and then YouTube came in. And, it was just like crazy because like it kind of, for YouTube specifically, it just messes up the metrics. So like when you start seeing like the stats and trying to find where your audience is and what kind of content to make, when you start adding shorts to your long form content, it really messes up how you measure the statistics and the analytics of it. So I try to keep shorts and my long form separate. So if you're just going to do shorts, like make a separate YouTube channel just for clips or micro clips or shorts, and then put all your long forms, like if you're going to do a podcast and stuff, on YouTube. But that's just a pro tip there. So I want to dive into common beliefs about short form content and specifically why they're flawed from a branding and marketing perspective, from like, building a foundation of, true super fans. And the first topic I want to talk about, or the saying goes, is short form content is like the best way to grow fast. And although I agree, and yes, the numbers do show that short form content can generate quick reach. Here's the reality though. The reach is not the same as like the long-term impact, right? So like, even though you can grow fast with short form content, it's like a dopamine hit. It actually doesn't translate to long-term audiences. It doesn't translate to long-term super fans of your brand. The virality of it is interesting and very attracting because you could get like thousands, if not millions of views on a video, and then you could like ride that wave, but it doesn't really convert into like a deeper relationship with the engagement. And it actually creates like vanity metrics. It actually makes you think that you're doing something like, oh, I'm so special. But really, if you just focus on building your foundation of your brand, which I talk about all the time, and I'll just talk about the few things that creates the foundation of a brand, which is number one, your purpose. Number two is your vision. Number three is your mission. Number four is your values. And then the strategy alongside of that is knowing your audience, knowing your competitors in the market, and how you differentiate yourself from your competitors and speak directly to your audience. Like, what are they getting from you that they can't get from your competitors, and what makes your value so unique in the market? So if you could tackle all those ideas, that's your brand foundation. And those are the things that you want to talk about often and always when you're building your brand and when you're making videos. You want to make sure that it's contained in those core values and those core pillars of your brand, because you're not just going to try to put something out there and like, figure like do a million things and like it just doesn't make any sense and no one really understands it because it's so confusing. And whenever you confuse, like Donald Miller from StoryBrand says, if you confuse, you lose. And he's right, So that's number one. The short form content is the best way to grow fast. I do agree with that, but does not translate to long-term gain. Okay. Number two is people's attention spans are shorter than ever. Although this is true, studies actually show that people binge watch hours and hours and hours of YouTube videos. Like Joe Rogan's podcast, people tune into for like 2, 3, 4 hours. And this is the truth. Like the statistics show that people actually binge watch and binge listen to podcasts. Their favorite podcasts they'll listen to for hours and hours and hours. Listen to 2-hour podcasts, and they read long form LinkedIn posts if they're valuable, right? So like, although the idea is like, man, yeah, people just have the shortest attention span ever. We're shorter than a goldfish. I just don't think that's backed up by the data that we're actually seeing, like the actual data of retention, that people are actually spending time on these channels and platforms, spending time reading long form articles, listening to long podcasts. Like they actually are hungry and desire, like they do desire to go deeper, because I feel like that dopamine hit or that trend is kind of shifted. Like people are actually starting to get hungry for like depth, right? And width. So right now, it might not be about short-term attention spans, but it's all about creating more compelling, engaging, and relevant content for your audience. Okay. That's number two. Number three is short form is the only way to win on social media. Now, that's a common belief that I think a lot of influencers or a lot of, I see it a lot in marketing because there's a lot of like, in the past couple of years, a lot of agencies have been popping up, and then they're called like short form content agencies, right? So they're trying to like sell shovels and stuff. And I get the whole concept of like, oh, short form agency, like we make short form videos but the thing is, and what I've learned, because we did this in our agency, in our company, we focus on short form content, but it was like a arm, it was like one strategy that's attached to a bigger strategy. But what we recognized is that that isn't really scalable. Like that isn't really, the thing that does it for people to win and convert a viewer. Like short forms really just like dopamine hits of entertainment, or oh, that's really interesting, I'm gonna share it with my friend, but it doesn't actually translate to clicks. Do you know what I mean? Like if they never truly just go on, and some people say like you're wrong because I made so much money. It's like yeah, but like you might be the less than 1% that happens to, right? And or you might just have a specific niche or a specific thing, or you're really good at creating like a call to action or whatever that is. But for the common person, sure, like if you're trying to win on social media, like win what exactly? Like define that. Like, do you want to win followers that actually never work with you, that never buy your product, that never actually reach out or engage with you? Instead, you're just trying to hit this view count of high view counts, but like there's no brand trust being built. Like, what exactly are you trying to win? So, this idea that these brands are dominating today with those like short form content, like it's part of the bigger strategy, which is like short form is like a vehicle for awareness, but they tee that up with long form content for depth and authority. So that's the missing part there, is that you want to tee up short form with a longer form for depth and authority. So you could go deeper and invite people into the conversation. What I've seen explode is these long form podcasts that are on YouTube, on Spotify. They're crushing it because they'll take clips from it, like literally like hot topics, like controversial topics. They'll chop them up into shorts, throw them into all these platforms as like a secondary platform, just to entice people to go listen to the full episode. Right? They're like, oh, you like that? It's like a teaser. It's like, oh, you like that? Go listen to the full thing in context, right? So like they'll probably even throw something out of context on purpose to manipulate, or like, to create a viral hook or viral moment. I can't believe he said this or she said that, or oh my gosh. And then like it forces people, so like it produces so much curiosity for people that they actually want to go and watch the full episode, and then they'll stick around the whole episode and be like, actually it didn't go down that way, they were just blah 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 blah. So like think about it that way. Okay, so short form is the only way to win in social media. I would have to disagree with that. It's not the only way to win. It is the awareness part, and then you tie that to like a long form. So let's go into why long form content builds stronger trust and true audience loyalty. So this is the part where, is really important to talk about, because the long form content does build stronger trust and true audience loyalty. Like think about it. So you're listening to this podcast right now. You might be watching it, or you might be listening to it on audio. And if you are, you just invited me into your most intimate space, which is your ear hole. Sorry, like for the describer, but like you're listening to my voice, right? You're listening to my voice, and you've allowed me up until this point to speak directly to you in the most intimate way possible. And you're listening to me, and you're actually paying attention, and you're caring about what I'm about to say next, right? So this right here, we're building close trust, right? And what we're doing here is building this loyalty to each other. And my commitment to you is that I'm going to give you things that are brutal truths, honest truths, some insights from my experience, and I'm going to deliver it in a way where you want to hear it, right? That's the promise here. And in exchange, we're building loyalty. You're building trust with me, trusting me to be a voice for you, right? So number one, long form content converts at a higher rate. And this is true. HubSpot just did a recent study on this. Long form blog posts generate 77% more backlinks, leading to higher SEO ranking and more organic traffic. Meanwhile, Wista found that long form videos over 2 minutes long result in 2 times higher engagement and conversion rates than short clips. People who consume long form content are more likely to buy, subscribe, or engage with a brand because they get to know the brand at a deeper level. Ain't that something? Now, this is true. It's backed by data, okay? But it's also backed by practicality. Like I do this, okay? And I'm sure that you do this too. You just don't know it. Just think about all the podcasts that you listen to. Think about, just the promotion and advertising that goes in between those podcasts. And you're like, all right, like I trust them. If they're selling this, like I'll trust them. I'll go buy. You know how many clicks, like click the link to get, a special code. Like I've clicked so many links, maybe not in the beginning, but as I built trust, yeah, I clicked those links and I actually used some of them, right? Because I'm like, okay, they're looking out for the best. Like, if I'm if I vibe with them, then, they're probably in the same similarity of related topics that I love, right? So that's number one. Number two is long form builds authority and thought leadership, which it does. Short form content is great for grabbing attention, like I had mentioned, but long form content is where you prove your expertise. This is the time that you could actually triple down and show that you're actually an expert on something because of long form content. Here's some examples, okay? Mr. Beast, he uses shorts for virality, but makes money and builds deep loyalty through long form videos. Like he has videos that like 20, 40-minute videos that you just stick around and you're literally just a deep loyalist if you watch his stuff. I barely watch his stuff because I don't want to get all that stuff in my feed most of the time, but I do a lot of studies on Mr. Beast. And the short form they do go viral, and then he pushes it to long form for a deep loyal kind of audience there. Joe Rogan does this too. So his 3-hour podcast dominate because people want in-depth conversations, not just clips, but JRE clips, YouTube, I go to all the time for topical broken down segments of his podcast. So I'll consume those as well. So they go hand in hand. Like, so if I'm just like, just wanting to hit some quick topics instead of listening to the whole thing, I'll just go to the clips part. Lex Friedman and Andrew Huberman, their long form content has built a cult-like following because of the depth of value they provide. And Lex is actually like a MIT student, graduate, and he's an interesting fellow for sure. So that's number two. Number three is people trust you more when they spend more time with you. Now, this is an absolute. Okay, so this is the absolute truth. Right? More proximity builds more community, builds more trust, right? Think about your closest friends. Like trust isn't built in 30 seconds, okay? Think about that. Trust isn't built in 60-second reels. All right. It's built over time. So long form content allows people to spend more time with your ideas, increasing your familiarity, which we call the mere exposure effect or the familiarity effect. And that effect psychologically means that the more people see your face, the more people hear your voice, the more people see your body language, they'll get really familiar with you and they'll literally feel like you're their friend. And for instance, if you're married and have a spouse, right? If you have a husband or a wife, I know my wife, she's a stay-at-home mom and she watches a lot of, like shows and stuff. I remember when we first got married, I was working all day and I came home one time and she was just like, oh my gosh, like, Ross just did this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, who's Ross? And she was like this episode of Friends. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you're talking about a TV show? Like what? Like I thought you were talking about like a friend from church or something like that. And I was literally like, dude, like, do they know you have this relationship with them? No, they don't. So, but it increases familiarity because she keeps on watching episodes, right? And you build that trust and that loyalty, and that's what creates brand loyalty. So like if you continuously show up online, especially video. So if you're a CEO or a serious entrepreneur, the best way to build trust and loyalty is to do long form video people will literally sit with you, listen to you. Like they just want to hear you talk, hear how you process, how you do business, what your perspective of life is, and how you see the world through your lens. So it is best to launch a show, right? Put on like just put set up a camera, hit record, and start talking to your employees, start talking to your friends, bring them over for conversations and hit on a topic that you typically talk about, over dinner. Like do whatever, like go to a cigar lounge and hit record with some buddies. Like I'm telling you, they're gonna want to hear your perspective. And that's how you build trust and loyalty, because people want to know who you are behind the brand. Okay. And that's why in 2025, it is so crucial for CEOs, entrepreneurs, C-suite executives to step out and get visible. And that's exactly what executive brand growth does. So this is a great segue into this episode being brought to you by Executive Brand Growth. We do a lot of coaching, brand growth coaching, executive coaching when it comes to building your personal brand as an executive, how to get more visible in the market through video. And we have a coaching program right now that is 6 months. So go check it out, executivebrandgrowth.com. Check it out. We also do creative team recruitment. So if you're looking to make your hire for creative, whether it is a content editor, what we call shredder, which is a shooter editor. So if you're looking for someone in-house to shoot and edit for you, if you're looking for a virtual assistant, we have a creative VA recruiting segment and department of our company. So we could help recruit VAs in your company, whether they're copywriters, social media managers, editors, designers, whatever it is that you're looking for, project managers, all those things. So check out executivebrandgrowth.com. Go right now. All right. So let's get back into this episode with the problem of short form content agencies. Cause I did touch upon it. Like there's short form content agencies that pop up left and right. I've been seeing them nonstop. And I'm like, okay, it's just regurgitating everything that I've already heard from everybody. And it's just not compelling enough to me personally. When someone wants to hire an agency or short form content, it just is not compelling enough, right? Because you got to go and through like branding. Sometimes if you hire these agencies, it might even hurt your brand more because there's no brand direction. Okay. So if you're going to work with an agency, just make sure that there is an executive creative presence for alignment and insight and just accountability. Okay. Make sure that there's like a creative director involved or someone that is like a master storyteller that is more strategic than just like a content creator or an editor. Okay. Like the red flag for me is if you hire someone that's just like, oh yeah, I film content, I'm a content creator, because you can't wear all 17 hats when it comes to just creative strategic positioning. Okay. Like you got to understand the psychology of marketing, the understanding of brand messaging, brand structuring, brand execution, workflow, KPIs, benchmarks. All those things are really, really important. That's why you want to be able, like your first hire should be like a shredder, first of all, because if you're a shredder is a shooter editor. So if you're a CEO, you're like the visionary, right? So you're like the leader of the company. But if, you're not very involved when it comes to strategy or anything like that, hire yourself a creative director like myself, where I come in and I embed myself in the company and I build a strategy, I execute that, I manage and lead teams and make sure that they're hitting the nail on the head when it comes to alignment, brand vision, and all those things. But if you're not in that place and you don't have the revenue for that to like build the actual team, then I would definitely hire a shredder first, someone that knows how to shoot and edit at the same time. And you could hire them at like 25, like hire a young person, whatever, start them off at like $2,000-$3,000 a month and invest into that, where they just follow you around and they put a camera in your face and they film you talking about your process, about your brand, about your company, about your services, about your clients, like get testimonials. You could utilize them in such a way where they could actually build a brand off of just being the visibility focus of the brand and transferring that thought leadership over, and they could just make content and post it, right? So like start off with that. So my problem and issue with a lot of these short form agencies is that many agencies try to like sell the idea that chopping up podcasts and making trendy TikToks is enough to build a brand, which is absolutely false. Okay. So the reality of that is that these agencies optimize for engagement, not brand growth. Okay. So they're optimizing a lot of the clips to get more engagement, but they're not thinking long-term or fundamental, brand growth. Like, how does this play into the business brand as a whole? Okay, so they don't think about that. They focus on the output, but not the impact that the brand position in the market has. Okay, so they don't help you build a strategy that converts attention into trust and sales. They're just clipping up stuff and hoping that the viewers go there, and some of these agencies, and I've seen this, they do this where they like pay to get more views, so they want to keep a job. So like they'll be like, look how many views we got, but like no one's ringing the phone at all. So just red flag, before you go hire an agency, make sure that you have those questions. They like, just be like, hey, I want to embed a strategy behind this. So like walk me through your creative process, right? So if it doesn't have to do with like aligning their outputs with your brand, then red flag, just don't move forward with them. Okay. So here's what you should do instead. I want you to take a strategic shift as the focus. Okay. So I'm not saying stop making short form content. Hear me out. I'm not telling you to stop making short form content, but instead, I need you to shift your focus to like a more balanced content strategy that actually grows your brand. Okay. So we want you to grow your brand beyond your business. Okay. So start with long form at first. If you're just a newbie at this or you're just starting to get to the content game, you want to start with long form content and then repurpose it for later. Okay. So you want to repurpose that long form, because what you're doing when it comes to making long form content is that like you could fake the funk. If you're doing like a 2-minute clip, or like if you're reading a script, you could fake it. But if you're creating like a 30-minute video or 40-minute video on one single topic that you're super passionate about, you could actually come off as authentic as possible. Like you're actually not even saying a lot of ums or uhs or all those things when you're talking about something that you're passionate about. So if you want to come off authentic and you want to come off as the authority, you're going to build that confidence by doing a lot more long form. So take one topic. Maybe it's one problem that you solve in your company that you do better than anybody else, and you could talk about that one topic for like 30-40 minutes in a video, and then later you could have an editor repurpose the best parts of that clip and put it all together so that you can show up authentically yourself at all times. Instead of just making short clips, create a long form piece of content first, like a podcast, maybe deep dive videos, maybe taking a blog post and going super deep into that. That's exactly what I'm doing here today. I'm taking a blog or article that I wrote and I'm dissecting it and turning it into a video for later. Okay, so you want to extract the short clips from that because you're going to show up more authentically when you do that. Okay, so here's some examples. So you could record a 30-minute deep dive video on a specific topic. Then you could extract 5 to 10 high valuable clips for social media from that 30-minute deep dive video. Then from there, you could create a blog or an article summarizing all the key takeaways. And guess what? AI could help you do all this in post or later. There's tools like Cast Magic, ChatGPT, like Blogify. There's all kinds of tools out there, AI tools that are very cheap, very affordable, that you could just plug in and it does the work. It gets like 90% of the way there for you. Okay. And then what you could do with that article is you could send it to your email list with the video attached to it for your YouTube channel. That's what we're doing with a few current clients right now for executive brand growth. We're taking videos that they are just creating long form for, we're turning them into articles and we're sending them off to a monthly newsletter for their email list where we've produced over thousands and thousands of subscribers for. And that's exactly what their audience wants to see. So this approach makes sure that your short form content actually serves your long form brand and not just the other way around. Okay. And the second thing here is that you want to double down on YouTube and podcasts because YouTube rewards long form content, long form watch time. So you could monetize that in the future if you've gained subscribers in the future, right? So you could actually monetize your YouTube and YouTube will pay you every single month because you're making long form content and you're driving more audiences, more viewership there. A podcast could build deep connections with listeners, and you could actually insert, just like we did in this video, you could insert your own self-sponsored promos, right? It could be a 30-second clip, 2-minute clip, promoting what your business does, right? In these podcasts. And both provide evergreen content that people can discover over time, meaning people, when they're searching for something, they're going to find your content because it's long form, it's long tail content, meaning that it's jam packed with SEO, right? SEO, search engine optimization content. So keywords, all those things, they're going to find your videos. And here's the thing, YouTube's owned by Google. YouTube's the second largest platform in the world that search every month. Google's the first one. And Google owns YouTube, and Google favors video. So if you're showing up and ranking with video on YouTube as a podcast, you're going to show up in Google searches as well. All right. So instead of chasing short form virality, invest in platforms where people consume longer content. Number 3, build a community, not just an audience. What does that mean? Okay, so an audience is like, oh, I got so many views, I got so many comments and stuff, but you want to tie that to a place where they could feel like they're a part of your brand. Okay, so if your brand or business doesn't have an email list, doesn't have a private community on Facebook or on Circle platform or somewhere where you could actually establish community, where the community part is a place where I consider what a community is a place where we could have conversations on a daily or weekly basis, where you could directly message the people that have rose their hand and said, I want to be part of this tribe, I want to be part of this community. You have direct communication. So just for instance, just last week or this past week, TikTok got banned, and over 170 million users were like, what happened? And on my feed, I just have influencer friends on my feed just like literally crying like, gosh, I just lost 2 million followers. I've been posting every single day for the last 3 years and they're going crazy. I'm like, well, did y'all build the email list? Did y'all build a private community where you could communicate? Like, do not rely on these social media platforms because this is borrowed space. This is rented real estate, digital real estate. So although it is good and essential, it's a secondary platform for communication. Your first communication platform should be a private community, whether that's in like GroupMe, whether that's in WhatsApp, whether that's in, just name it, like Discord, whatever it is. You want to build a private community where you could communicate directly to your audience. And that's your community. You can get direct feedback from them, right? So like, you could let's see, you could do short form content that builds an audience, but long form content build a community. And you could start with like newsletters where people could like, you could share deeper insights to people that are in your community. So like if your community is on YouTube and you're like, oh man, your call to action could be something like, hey, go to this link, click here to join our weekly newsletter or our daily newsletter. So you get daily insights sent directly to your inbox every morning. Like that kind of thing builds community. Create like a Q&A sessions, maybe live streams or deeper discussions for your audience. Maybe do some group Zoom calls with your audience. That's what we're working on this year actually for executive brand growth. So we're going to be doing a lot of group calls, a lot of workshops, a lot of Q&A sessions and live streams this year that I'm really, really excited to start doing because we haven't implemented this part yet. But also like if you build like a Slack channel or Discord community, that actually creates like real engagement, real time where you could get real feedback right away. So if you're going to do a product launch or if you're going to do a service launch or whatever, you could do that with your community first and then release it to the public. So that's how that works. Okay. 4th is prioritizing storytelling over trend hopping. Okay. So trendy short form content disappears really fast, really quickly. Stories last forever. So if you can drive stories, if you could share and become a master storyteller, that is going to resonate so much long term. It's going to reward you long term because those are the stories that people remember, not just like a trendy dance on TikTok or, trending music or anything like that. You want to be able to tell stories and tell it always and often. So if you can tell personal stories in a long form blog post, people will actually get something from that. Now, the greatest storyteller of our time is Jesus. He actually told stories and parables and all these things because it resonates with his audience and people. It reminds them and connects with them. And those stories, the reader or the listener puts themselves in that person's shoes and say, what's the moral of this story? What is the why do I remember this story than a 60-second TikTok dance reel, right? Because it is a personal story that they inject. You could turn those personal stories, you could write a whole article, like blog lists and a library of stories that you've run into as an entrepreneur. Maybe there's some lessons that you've learned over the years after failing and failing and failing over again, maybe hiring and firing the wrong people, whatever it is, there's some story behind where you're at, right? So tell those stories always and often, and you could do it in blog form or video form, okay? Then share those client success stories too in long form. So maybe you have some amazing client success stories that you want to share. Those are case studies. Those are things that you're like, wow, when we first started working with X, Y, and Z, we have a lot of these case studies on our website. By the way, once we started working with them, they started growing their brand, growing their influence, growing their impact and their income because they started telling better stories. They started doing more videos and they started becoming the face of their company and getting more visible. They took their company from $100,000 to $1.5 million in less than 8 months because they started putting themselves in front of the camera. So those stories are going to be really, really important, those client success stories. Now, you could also use storytelling in your podcast to build an emotional connection. So, just that story alone, I'm trying to build an emotional connection with you, the audience. You're listening to my voice right now. There's a deeper connection, understanding that there's a story behind what I do and why I do it, right? And if I could share those stories always and often, you're going to be able to connect even more because you know that I'm a practitioner. I'm not just theory. I'm not just thinking, oh, yeah, this could work. I'm saying I walked it out. I ran into these walls. I busted through those walls, or some walls I didn't bust through. And this is why I didn't bust through them, because I learned from my mistakes. But if you focus on becoming a great storyteller, your audience will actually stick around longer. Okay. So let's end this podcast right here. My final thought here is to make the shift before it's too late. Okay. So short form content, I just want to reiterate this. Short form content isn't bad. Okay. It's just not enough today. All right. It's just not enough. So if you're serious about building a brand that actually lasts and grow your brand beyond your business, where you could go from one career to the next and transition and exit well and go to the next career or whatever stage that is for you, you want to start growing your storytelling abilities. You want to start getting more visible. You want to start getting on camera and getting comfortable being on camera. So you need to start shifting your focus towards more long form content that builds trust, authority, and real relationships than short form content or little blogs or relying on AI to generate whatever. Okay. So the best brands and big brands that are building that trust today are balancing the short form content with the long form content strategically instead of just chasing every little metric, all the little vanities. Well, what's doing well? What's working well? No, like really focus on long form content right now. And you got to ask yourself, is this building my brand or is this just building my views? All right. So you want to focus on those foundational things. What is your purpose, right? What is the reason you exist? That's something you ask yourself. The vision for you is, well, what do you want to see happen in the next year? Give it a timeline. What do you want to see happen in the next year? The mission is, well, how are you going to get there? How are you going to get there? What vehicle what assignment do you feel like you're on? Is that what your business is doing? Does your business have a vehicle to get from point A to point B when it comes to your vision and mission? Okay. And values is, what are your core values that are going to keep your character together and your company together along the journey, right? To wherever your how you measure success. Okay. So the answer might change everything for you. Right. So ask that yourself. Am I building my brand or am I just getting views? And once you figure that out, you will start building a brand that can grow beyond your business. So thank you so much for watching. I'm John Mediana. I hope you got something out of this episode. Again, go ahead and visit executivebrandgrowth.com. We have a coaching program right now. Check it out, schedule a call with me, and apply for it. It is application based and we only take a certain amount of clients. So it's limited seating throughout the year because we really want to focus on spending one-on-one time with our clients to make sure that we ensure the results. So it's limited seating right now, but get all the information. Go to executivebrandgrowth.com. Thanks for listening to Branding Beyond Business, where we help build your brand that grows beyond your business. So thank you for watching. Tune in for the next episode, and I hope to see you there. Follow me at John Mediana everywhere. We'll talk later.